Which event modifiers actually stop teaming, and how well do they do that? We're going to go over that and how well liked every single event modifier is, and if we should be getting rid of any of them. Let's do it. Alright, let me briefly explain the setup for all of this. Now, I've sent out a survey on YouTube and on Twitter asking you all 2 questions for every event modifier. First off, rate it from 1 to 5 on how much you like that event modifier, and then how frequently do you see teaming in that event modifier. Now, of course, that doesn't go over like how much teaming you see in each event modifier, but I still think this is an accurate example representation of how much teaming each event modifier actually has. And I also asked you to put, how many trophies you have. So here's a little graph showing you the sort of data that we got, the population, the trophies of everyone. Most people were from between 4,000 trophies and 10,000 trophies. And another thing I want to point out is 16% was over 10,000 trophies. And if you look at a recent tweet sent out by Frank, the team lead for Brawl Stars, he said for the actual population for Brawl Stars of active players, only 0.2% or over 10,000 trophies. So this data population is not exactly representative of the actual average Brawl Stars player, but I do still think it's a very accurate data representation. And if you're talking about teaming, it's probably even more accurate because in the end result, especially for the future of Brawl Stars, everyone's just going to be gaining trophies, and the higher trophies you get, typically the more teaming you're going to see. And this is just more representative of what is going to be more like Brawl Stars future, or what's Brawl Stars really gonna be. Also, if you like this sort of thing, definitely subscribe because I love doing stuff like this and you'll definitely see more of. Now let's start out by looking at each game mode individually, and then we'll compare them all together and see how they really stack up against each other. Alright, starting out with healing mushrooms. How much do people really like healing mushrooms? Well, actually, a lot of people enjoy healing mushrooms. For the most part, the majority of people either think healing mushrooms is okay, or they like it, and not that many people dislike it or hate healing mushrooms, which is a great sign. You always want people to like your game modes. And how does that change as people increase in trophies? Does it change by the trophy range that much? Well, as you increase in trophies, people start to dislike it a little bit less, but it honestly doesn't change that much. Oh, really quickly, I also want to say, you sort of saw this in the percentage chart for how many trophies people have, but the 0 to 2,000 trophy range only had about 60 people fill it out, so some of the data points are definitely looking different than a lot of the others. I'm not sure if this is because not many people filled it out and the data points aren't as accurate. All the other modes had over 400 people fill it out, some of them over 500 and one over 1,000. So just keep that in mind. Now, what about how much teaming is there in healing mushrooms? Well, it's definitely there, with it being about 40% of the time you sometimes see teaming in a match. But it doesn't seem to be a huge problem happening every match or almost every match that often. But how does that change as you increase in trophies? Well, as you get to around 10,000 trophies, teaming starts to be in a majority of the matches, with it either happening every match or almost every match about 60% of the time. So it definitely starts to become a problem in healing mushrooms as you get higher in trophies. And I did find it interesting, you start to see some big jumps in the amount of teaming you see going when you increase from 4,000 trophies to 6,000 trophies, and then again when you increase to 10,000 trophies. Once you get to around 6,000 trophies, it seems that's when you start to encounter a decent amount more teaming, and then another huge jump at 10,000 trophies. Now, what about Meteors? Meteors is not looking too good, with barely over 20% even liking or loving the event modifier. So that is definitely not a good sign, with a heavy majority thinking it's either okay at best, or either they don't like it or they hate it. So Meteors not looking too hot, but how does that change as your trophy amount changes? Well, just like with healing mushrooms, as you increase in trophies, more people tend to dislike it. But we see some huge jumps in the amount of people that dislike Meteors, especially when you get to around 6,000 trophies, and then again at 10,000 trophies, it really changes. And when you get to 6,000 trophies, almost no one loves Meteors, especially when you get to 10,000. So this is a huge red flag for Brawl Stars. Should you, is this even a good game mode to keep if this many people don't like it? Well, and why is it that people don't like it? Well, why don't we go to the next chart, and that's how much teaming do we see in Meteors. Now, actually looking at the overall amount of teaming in Meteors, it's actually doesn't look that different from Healing Mushrooms amount. So overall, I mean, there's still a solid amount. It is more. Basically, almost everything is more than Healing Mushroom as far as how much teaming you're seeing in Meteors. But the real question is, how does that change as you increase in trophies? And just like Healing Mushrooms, you see a huge jump as you get to around 10,000 trophies. And around 6,000 trophies as well, but really big jump at 10,000 with the amount of teaming you see every match skyrocketing. You're really starting to see a huge increase and a heavy majority of people in 10,000 plus trophies saying they see teaming every match or almost every match, and that is definitely a big red flag. All right, now what about Angry Robo? How many people like Angry Robo? Well, honestly, Angry Robo seems like a pretty mixed bag. There's a decent amount of people who like, love, think it's okay, don't like it, and hate Angry Robo. So it compares probably somewhat similar to Meteors, although probably a bit better. Now, how does that change as people increase in trophies? Again, just like the past two event modifiers, as you gain trophies, you tend to start liking it not quite as much, but not a big change compared to some of the others, so it's just a little bit of a change. Now, how much teaming do we see in Angry Robo? It is, again, a bit of a mixed bag, comparing somewhat similarly to Meteors, although honestly, it's also a bit better. But if you compare it to Healing Mushroom, it has more people saying they almost never see teaming, which is great, but they also have more people saying they see it every match. So it definitely varies for your experience in Angry Robo, probably varies a lot by the match. Now, if you start increasing in trophies, again, it just, is gonna have more teaming as you get higher in trophies, and again, with a big jump at 10,000 plus trophies, although it is pretty mixed across the board. All right, now what about energy drink? Energy drink, how much do people really like that game mode? Well, turns out they like it quite a lot. Well, there's actually a little bit more people who really don't like energy drink compared to, say, Healing Mushroom. There's also a lot more people who really love energy drink and overall has pretty positive ratings across the board. So that is a great sign. Now, how does this change for energy drink as far as when you increase in trophies? Again, just like every event modifier so far, as you increase in trophies, you start not liking it quite as much, but not a big drop across the board. But how much teaming is there in it? Well, it actually seems pretty dang good. You look at it compared to some others, and overall, the heavy majority people don't see teaming hardly that often in energy drink, which is definitely a good sign. And of course, again, as you increase in trophies, you start to see a bit more teaming, but it's more of a mixed bag. It doesn't seem quite as many huge jumps for some of the changes as you increase in trophies for the amount of teaming you see in energy drink, which is definitely a good sign. Now, before we compare every event modifier together and get a good overall picture of how they stack up against each other, I also had two interesting questions to ask you all, which was, first of all, which one is actually your favorite event modifier to play? Not only just how much do you like it, which one is your favorite and least favorite? So for that matter, your favorite event modifier was by far energy drink. Energy drink and Healing Mushroom were really the only two that people really put as their favorite. And how does that change as people increase in trophies? Well, you start to like energy drink a little bit less and Healing Mushroom a little bit more. Now, I'm not exactly sure why, and also as you increase in trophies, people start to like Angry Robo a little bit more. Now, the other question, what is your least favorite event modifier? Probably no surprise, Meteors takes the cake, with almost half of the people surveyed saying Meteors is their least favorite modifier. Also a big percentage saying Angry Robo as well. And as you increase in trophies, it, of course, no surprise, gets worse and worse for Meteors. I mean, you think about it, as you increase in trophies, you see more teaming. So the event modifiers that are worse against teaming, probably people are going to start not liking as much. Now, how do the game modes stack up against each other? First off, how much is each game mode liked? Well, you can look here. Healing Mushroom and Energy Drink are definitely in a really good place, with Meteors and Angry Robo a bit mixed, and Meteors definitely not looking that good, with Angry Robo having a solid about 20% more people saying they like it and or love it compared to Meteors. So Meteors definitely not looking so hot, definitely the least liked event modifiers, probably Angry Robo being third, and then Healing Mushroom being second, even though there's a very high percent of people that like it and love it. And actually it has the lowest amount of people who hate and don't like the event modifier. You got to give Energy Drink, who has the highest amount of people saying they love that event modifier, and combined highest amount of people who love it and like it. So Energy Drink is the most liked event modifier, followed by Healing Mushroom, then Angry Robo, and then Meteors. Now I also thought it would be interesting to compare it at 10,000 trophies, because end result, that's the end goal for everyone, is to get above 10,000 trophies and keep on increasing their Brawler trophies. So as far as the future Brawl Stars is concerned, this is a good look at how people at higher trophies feel about all the game modes together. Now, we're seeing Energy Drink and Healing Mushroom are still in a pretty good place. We're also seeing Meteors is in a horrible place. Now, Angry Robo, though, is a bit of a mixed bag, with some people definitely not liking it, some people liking it, and a lot of people thinking it's okay. So I also want to talk about if we should do anything to Meteors and Angry Robo as far as changing them up. Maybe should they be removed? Should they have changes? But we'll talk about that after we talk about teaming first. All right, now which game mode stops teaming the best? Well, it's definitely have to be Energy Drink. It honestly seems like the only game mode that really actually stops teaming well, with not that many people saying they see teaming every match or almost every match. Which game mode stops teaming the worst? Well, actually, Angry Robo has the highest amount of people saying it's every match, but it's hardly that different from Meteors, and Meteors has more people saying they see it almost every match. So Meteors does definitely appear to be the worst event modifier to stop teaming. And another interesting thing to look at is Healing Mushroom. Actually, it doesn't seem to stop teaming that well, but it also doesn't seem to encourage teaming that much either. Healing Mushroom with the lowest amount of people saying that they almost never see teaming. So it's definitely happening in Healing Mushroom, but it also doesn't seem to be happening at a very high rate, which is interesting to look at. But wait, how does this compare to above 10,000 trophies? How much teaming is there, you know, at the end goal we all want to get to? Well, Energy Drink is honestly the only event modifier that actually seems to stop teaming, with only about a third of people saying they see it every match or almost every match, which is actually pretty good. But on the other side of the coin, every other event modifier has teaming every match or almost every match about 2/3 of the time, which seems a very high amount, and definitely seems like none of them are actually stopping teaming that well, except for Energy Drink. And while it seemed like Healing Mushroom was doing pretty well in the lower trophy ranges, actually as you get higher in trophies, it's pretty comparable to every event modifier, except for Meteors, which again takes the cake for having the most amount of teaming, which probably isn't that surprising, honestly. So while we can pat Supercell on the back for a job well done in Energy Drink as far as stopping teaming goes, not so much with the other game modes. But I actually did find it pretty interesting that Angry Robo actually rose up in the ranking terms as far as how well it stops teaming at higher trophies. So it doesn't actually get that much worse for Angry Robo, but Healing Mushroom got a lot worse as far as teaming was concerned at really high trophies. But I mean, think about it. In Healing Mushroom and in Meteors, only 10% of people above 10,000 trophies almost never, or not often, see teaming. That's very, very bad. So what should be done? Should we remove any of these event modifiers? Should we change any of them up? Well, to be honest, let's look at the 10,000 plus for how many people like each game mode, because I think ultimately that's, you know, what the future of Brawl Stars is looking like. Only 15% of people like Meteors. That is horrible. That right away tells me Meteors needs to be removed, and I see almost no reason Meteors should stay in the game. 15% of people like it. Why would you want to keep anything that only 15% of people like? I don't care how many people think it's okay. That's honestly not an indicator of something that's good. And honestly, with the stats being this bad, that tells me it's beyond redemption, because they already tried to improve it, and here's how it is now. Now, what about Angry Robo? Only 30% of people like it or love it, which again is not very high and definitely not an indication that Angry Robo is in a healthy state. Well, to be honest, I think Angry Robo's at a point where you need to make some changes and try and fix it up and try and improve it. But I don't think it's at a point where I would immediately remove it. I do think you should try and improve it. Try and make some changes, maybe make the robot have less health, make it not as big of an annoying thing, because it definitely is one of those things where it completely changes your fate. If a robot spawns near you and it's completely luck-based, you are gonna try and run away from it as fast as possible, which is kind of, you know, it's luck-based. So in that sense, it's not as enjoyable. So my suggestion for a change to Robo Rumble is decrease the amount of health the Angry Robot has by 1/3. On top of that, also make the power cubes be 1/3 less, just to equalize it. So that way, it's pushing you back some still, but it's not a crazy high amount of health, and maybe even brawlers that are lower damage can still deal with the robot, at least somewhat. And what about Healing Mushroom or Energy Drink? Well, thankfully, a majority of people either like or love both of those game modes. So even though Healing Mushroom actually does have a decent amount of teaming, people do seem to enjoy the game or the event modifier a lot, so that's pretty good. If you like this video, definitely check out the one I did right over there going over how well liked every game mode is in Brawl Stars. Now that's going to be it for today's video though. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you later.